couple of quick hits from the news behind the counter. Regular marijuana users have higher levels of both lead and cadmium in their blood and urine. A new study from Columbia University in New York City found that non-tobacco using cannabis smokers had 27% more lead in their blood and 21% in their urine, as well as 22% more cadmium in their blood and 18% more in their urine. So in both cases, that's a large double-digit increase in both of those metrics and for both of those heavy metals. There is no safe amount of either one of those to have in your body, just to be clear. Both are linked to cancer, as well as things like high blood pressure and kidney disease. As to why these levels are so high in cannabis smokers, the plant itself is a hyperaccumulator, meaning it gathers substantially higher concentrations of those heavy metals from the soil, more so than other plants. But Tyler, I can hear you saying, why are we talking about pot on a show like this? Well, that's a great question. Research also indicates that marijuana use has skyrocketed in the United States, with an estimated 42 million regular users in the U.S. alone. So well over, 13% of the U.S. population is a regular marijuana user. So some of you are that. You need to look out for lead and cadmium. Pharmaceutical manufacturer Merck has entered phase 3 clinical trials for an oral PCSK9 inhibitor to evaluate its effect on hypercholesterolemia. I'm not going to say the actual words that PCSK9 stands for because it's a whole lot of letters and I can't articulate them. I've tried multiple times. Feel free to look it up for yourself. But the way this inhibitor works is by interacting with specific LDL receptors on the outside of cells. Those receptors are either looking for LDL cholesterol or they're looking for PCSK9 to tell them, hey, don't worry about it. You've done enough. Merck's trial drug inhibits that stand down order, meaning that those receptors, there are more of them available to pull the LDL cholesterol out of the blood. There are already injectable PCSK9 inhibitors out there, but this would be the first oral medication, making it much more widely available. On a personal note, inhibitors are the first medication that can help those of us with elevated LPA levels. Lp(a) is the genetic or inheritable component of cholesterol that you get from your parents, and there's not a whole lot that can be done with it right now in terms of lifestyle modification or even statins. They just don't affect the inherited portion of it. But a PCSK9, because it's pulling it out of the blood, that actually can affect this. I believe 20 to 30%, something like that. So very exciting. I hope this continues to be safe and effective because it might be in my future before long. Do you guys see a lot of the already injectable version? Do you guys get a lot of that through the pharmacy?
We actually do, more and more. So the two most common, I'll mention the brand names.
Yeah.
Praluent and Repatha are the two PCSK9 inhibitors that are most commonly used. They are expensive. They're either used as twice monthly or once monthly subcutaneous injections. So again, mainly why these oral options are so appealing that can be, a barrier for some people to have to do that.
Yeah, the idea of injecting myself, I assume it would be you would do it to yourself or have a loved one or somebody do it. It's not like you have to go to the doctor every month.
Right, exactly. So it's a subcutaneous injection. It's a smaller needle.
Yeah.
So it's not quite as daunting, but it's still can be an issue for some people.
Absolutely. So if we can get it in a pill form, that makes it much more available to a lot of people.
Yes. We're seeing that now with the GLP-1 agonists as well.
Yeah.
There are more of those in development as oral agents.
Oh, really?
Ribelsis is available as an oral agent. That's the semaglutide, which semaglutide is the injectable. Ozempic is the injectable version. Of semaglutide. So similar concept. But even, kind of just reading this, I know you mentioned that there is the potential for the Lp(a) lowering effect.
Yeah.
While that is huge, the main takeaway is just the oral option versus the injectable option.
Right.
And eventually you see the cost of these things hopefully come down. And again, not that the 20 to 25% reduction of Lp(a) potential that you mentioned, not that that's insignificant.
Right.
It's just that these agents are not technically FDA approved for that indication.
Oh, so this would be
a
an
huge
off-label use.
Yes, technically.
Interesting.
Now, if you had most people who do have elevated ApoB, let's say, they often have they might have the accompanying Lp(a) elevations.
Sure.
So a lot of that population may go hand in hand. But as of right now, they're technically only approved as second or third line agents as alternative therapy in cases of complete statin intolerance, for patients with established ASCVD or FH, which is the familial hypercholesterolemia.
Yeah.
So you may commonly see Dr. Attia using this in his book of patients. And I don't know how maybe they go about the insurance part of that or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not that it's not a useful reduction. Again, looking back at that 20 to 25% reduction, the key here is there are additional agents in development right now, phase 2 and phase 3 trials, that you're seeing 80 to 90% reduction in Lp(a).
Really?
So it's sounding like to really move the needle, that's the type of reduction you're looking for.
That's again, what I want to know about.
Exactly. Not that 20 to 25% is, again, meaningless. It's just that there are some really interesting therapies in development. What they're basically calling them are gene silencers. So yeah, there's a couple different classes within that.
It sounds sketchy. I don't know that I want to silence my genes, but
yes. And so the PCSK9s, those are technically monoclonal antibodies, which listeners have probably, they definitely have heard us mention that in different contexts.
Yep.
Again, they're monoclonal antibodies. They end in MAB or MABs. The gene silencers are going to be a totally different thing, totally different mechanism by which Lp(a) is lowered. Novartis is the big company that currently is developing these. There's data expected in 2025. So I know you were. I didn't mean to rain on your parade with the minimizing the reduction in Lp(a) with PCSK9s. So I wanted to make sure that I brought to the table some very promising news.
That is the inheritable element of it, and the fact that it's not affected by diet and lifestyle is what's concerning to me as somebody who has hypercholesterolemia from my family. I can diet and exercise all day long. I take red yeast rice, and there's all kinds of things I can do, but that inheritable portion is not going to change this side of some sort of crazy, fun, new medication. Right. And so it's anything that can change it is good, but I didn't realize that there were things that effective.
Yes.
Hopefully in the works.
Yeah. The phase 2 study for pelacarsen, it's called. It's had all types of different names up to this point, but pelacarsen, it sounds like, will be the generic name. The phase 2 study showed an 80% reduction in Lp(a) at the top end in those with a baseline Lp(a) of 224-ish nanomoles per liter. So it's a massive
224. Okay, that's way more than I had. So I guess it's not as bad as I thought.
Yes, and that the other goofy thing with a lot of these, lab panels, especially when you're looking at a value like Lp(a), I didn't realize how much controversy there was in the actual notation or the actual unit that they use. So you got to watch for millimoles per liter. You got to watch for milligrams per deciliter. You got to watch for nanomoles per liter, and the conversion factor is not necessarily a 1-to-1 thing either. So there's layers within the layer.
That's the fine print that they don't give to you, I think.
Yeah.
That's why, lab work, you got to
make sure we're all speaking the same language.
Definitely, especially with something like this, which I'm definitely interested in hearing more about. The other thing I didn't want to ignore that you said, you mentioned statins at the outset. In looking at some of this data, statins, they have a range of effect on Lp(a). Okay. Ranging from a little bit of a decrease to no effect at all to actually raising it slightly. Oh, geez. So there's even nuance within the kind of the function of Lp(a) in the body. So there's lipid metabolism, man. We always
it's a big topic.
It is, and then also how the other thing with the reduction in Lp(a) when just using PCSK9 inhibitors, all of that data is basically what they've done is it's a post hoc analysis. So these were not, forward-looking statistical analyses. These were basically analyses that were specified after the data was already finished.
So they figured it out after the fact.
They figured it out after. And not that that's rendered useless in any way. It's just that that's why we can't slap an FDA indicated approval on it, because somebody after the fact looked at this data and said, well, hey, we're seeing this effect on LP(a),
right?
But they can't quite tie it, directly to a meaningful outcome with that. It's pointing in that direction, that there's obviously going to be some reduction in the actual cardiovascular endpoints that they're looking for.
Sure. All right. Well, it's so funny. These are meant to be quick conversations about, hey, here's what's happening in the world of pharmacy. And it always turns into an actual conversation.
There's just
fun.
So much there. So much there. We have that cholesterol bias too.
We do. We talk about it a lot. If you want to know the details on cholesterol and why this is such a big deal, episode 13, one of our most popular episodes, it's a deep dive in cholesterol. We're going to have to do another one at some point in time because the data keeps expanding. So